Saturn, with its giant rings, is undoubtedly one of the most iconic planets in the solar system. However, there is a much bigger mystery associated with this planet. A mystery so great that, according to legends, it would cause the emergence of a cult dating back thousands of years and allow it to transmit its message from the shadows today. Furthermore, when we delve into the most extreme claims, a radical ideology emerges that suggests even a location considered extremely sacred by billions of people today is actually the source of this misinformation and deception. Today, we will together examine the secrets of an ancient and little-known cult that has somehow hidden itself on the misty shelves of history. And our journey will take us from the giants of the solar system to the dark stories of mythology, and from there to the sacred symbol of Islam. And together, we will investigate the truths behind the belief of the Black Cube cult, or by its older name, the Saturn Cult. Welcome to Find the Truth. A large black cube standing alone, an object that appears all over the world, sometimes as an artwork in squares, sometimes at the heart of a holy shrine, sometimes in the meditation room of the United Nations building, and sometimes at key religious points in the Middle East. Is this black cube motif a coincidence or a modern projection of an ancient symbol? Our first stop on this journey, which extends from the circularity of time to sacrifice rituals, from ancient myths to today's alternative theories, is a place far away from our planet. The mysterious beauty of our solar system, the planet Saturn. It all began in 1977 with NASA's Voyager programs, which sent probes into space to observe Jupiter and Saturn. 10 years later, when the astronomer David Godfrey compiled images taken by one of the Voyager missions, he was faced with a sight that would stun the scientific world. A geometrically perfect, gigantic hexagon stood over Saturn's North Pole, and right at its center, there was a dark spot. At first glance, no one could make sense of this relatively sharp-edged structure, because nature generally doesn't like sharp edges, especially if this formation is at the North Pole of a gas giant. While science researched the source of this interesting geometric shape among itself, another group who saw that image had already figured out what it was in their own way. This was a gate they had been talking about in their legends and beliefs for thousands of years. Saturn, and a gate to different dimensions? Although they seem like two utterly unrelated concepts at first, the story is actually about to take us on a mythological journey spanning thousands of years. The planet Saturn takes its name from the Roman god Saturnus. However, Saturnus's origin lies in a much darker and more powerful figure in Greek mythology, the great titan Kronos. If you are looking at Kronos' story for the first time, you are presented with a bloody epic of cosmic power struggle and paranoia. The story goes like this. Cronos, who overthrew his father Uranus and became the ruler of the universe, faces a dark prophecy. Just as he overthrew his father, one of his own children would overthrow him. It is to escape this fate that Kronos resorts to an unbelievable solution. He begins to swallow whole every child his wife Rhea gives birth to, as soon as they are born. When we read myths in a simplistic way, we miss the essential philosophy, even if the subject is deep. Because mythology is full of metaphors, the situation is no different here. The word Kronos means time in Greek. That is, he is the father of everything. All gods, all existence are with him. However, Kronos, or time, although he is the cause of everything existing, is also at the same time the cause of everything being destroyed. Because nothing, not even the gods in those myths, can escape time itself. In short, Kronos, or time, is a cyclical force that ultimately devours and destroys everything it creates. And those myths tell us this story in an allegorical language. If you notice, from the 17th century onwards, Kronos is usually depicted in works of art with a scythe in his hand. This is a symbol of both the harvest, or fertility, and also of death, even the Grim Reaper in popular culture. Because of this great power, people attributed great importance to Kronos, or Saturnus, and out of their ignorance, they performed a very painful sacrifice ritual for both a timely, good death and for a more bountiful harvest each year. To gain long life and fertility from Kronos, they would sacrifice a life that had just started its journey, a newborn baby. Einstein has a nice quote: "Two things are infinite, human stupidity and the universe." And I'm not sure about the latter. One of the best examples of this infinite human stupidity we encounter is that throughout history, instead of treating belief philosophies as philosophies, humans have put them into their own shallow molds and shaped them by adding incredibly ridiculous rituals of their own. Don't say that only the ancients did this. Even today, there are types who tear themselves apart to kiss the calloused foot of their sheikh. The idolatrous nature of man does not change, and the sign of this ignorance continues to emerge in the corrupted pagan rituals over thousands of years, whereas paganism was a very simple belief at first. Anyway, I will explain that in my video on the history of religions. Let's continue with our topic. One of these diverse and relatively aberrant rituals was the baby sacrifice ceremony performed to appease the god of time and agriculture that I just mentioned. In this dark ritual, performed facing Saturn, which is astrologically the highest, the newborn baby was placed on a cube-shaped altar and burned until it turned to ashes. This ceremony was sometimes also performed with newborn lambs and calves. The aim was to gain long life and fertility by sacrificing a life that had just begun to that god. Don't judge too harshly. We still continue to perform similar rituals today. As a result of this ceremony, the cube-shaped altars eventually began to take on a black color due to the ashes and fire, and they became a symbol of this belief, the ultimate symbol of the merciless god of time, death, and rebirth. We see one of the most intense examples of this worship in Carthage, one of the North African civilizations of its time. The god of those lands, Saturnus, often appears as Baal-Haman, and again remains have been found indicating that various pagan cults sacrificed babies to this god in the same manner. Baal should not be a foreign god to you, because he was a popular god worshipped in the Middle East, especially in the land of Canaan before the Abrahamic religions. And the people of that land also offered human sacrifices in the same way before Judaism. Even after Judaism, during the First and Second Temple periods, Jews continued the ritual of sacrificing rams by throwing and burning them in fire due to these old customs. And by the way, the symbol of Baal is two horns pointing upwards. Let this be an extra piece of information. We will see a similar one again in a different place shortly. This was the practical application of the symbolism. But there is also an esoteric belief behind the matter, and that is even more connected to our subject. We don't have exact information about where its origin comes from yet, but there are some ideologies that believe a deep esoteric meaning lies behind the dark cube symbol. According to them, the cube as a geometric shape represents a closed and confined space with its 6 faces, like a box or a prison. The color black evokes mystery, the unknown, and dark powers. According to esoteric interpretations, the black cube is the prison of the material world, the symbol of the boundaries enclosing the soul. And according to the black cube cult of Saturn, which acts with this approach, this material world we live in was not created by the real God, but by a lower-level, flawed being called the demiurge, who is consumed by the desire for worship. This world is a prison full of pain and suffering. The Saturn cult is actually defined as a cult that worships this demiurge. According to them, humanity's effort to transcend material reality and achieve spiritual enlightenment is a sin of pride committed against the demiurge. Therefore, the aim of this cult is to maintain the flawed kingdom of the demiurge by confining humanity to materialism, meaningless consumption, and animal instincts, and to prevent people from reaching the true divine God. That is why, in some conspiracy theories, there are those who claim that this cult used its power over thousands of years to influence even today's religions, cutting them off from their essence and making billions of people worship the fake demiurge instead of the true creator. They even claim that the biggest modern form of this worship continues around the black cube that is given the most sanctity on the planet, that is, the Kaaba. Kaaba is a temple structure whose literal meaning is cube, and although we only know the Kaaba in Mecca today, we know that there were dozens of Kaabas or cube temples in the Middle East in the pagan past. These were forgotten and destroyed as paganism ended, and the active cube in Mecca remains today. Now, according to the claims of this Saturn black cube cult and some Gnostic sub-belief members, the Kaaba was again covered with a black cloth by corrupted powers after the Prophet Muhammad to ensure the worship of the demiurge. Furthermore, their claims are not limited to this. I just told you that members of this cult sacrificed to Baal in Africa and the Middle East for thousands of years. And I also mentioned that Baal's symbol was upward-pointing horns. Now, according to this claim, the reason why the Arabs chose the upward-pointing horn, or crescent, as the symbol of Islam after the Ottomans, and placed this symbol on top of that giant clock tower that stares you in the face next to the Kaaba is this. Now, let me give you some background information. Most of us think the crescent has been the symbol of Islam since the time of the Prophet, but actually the Prophet Muhammad forbade the use of such symbols in that period, so that the symbols of the past would not enter Islam, because most of them were indeed idol symbols. The crescent symbol entered our lives especially when the Ottomans conquered Istanbul during the reign of Fatih, and became standard in the 17th century. Over time, this crescent turned into a kind of symbol of Islam over the centuries, as the Ottomans took control of Muslim countries in Africa and Arabia. However, after the Arabs fought with the Ottomans and broke away from us in the 19th century, they did not want to use this horizontal crescent because it was an Ottoman symbol, and they switched to the upward-pointing crescent, or, according to the claim of this cult, the upward-pointing crescent, which was the pagan idol symbol in the old Arabian beliefs. The claims of the members of this belief do not end here either. According to them, the cult's influence over religions is so strong that the hexagon shape in the center of the Jewish Star of David's symbol, which is the hexagon on top of Saturn, actually symbolizes the 6 corners of a cube. The cross shape, which is the symbol of Christianity, was chosen because it is a shape obtained by unfolding a cube in 2 dimensions. Even if we bring things to a more modern level, our entire universe is part of the illusion created by the demiurge, and everything we see is just a simulation. That is, no matter what you do, no matter how good you think you are, we are all souls trapped in a multi-dimensional cube in the system established by that fake Lord. And even when you think you are dead, the light that greets you is just a system that imprisons your consciousness back into this fake simulation and restarts everything. In short, it is not very possible for you to escape this prison. And if you say you will follow the spiritual path, the soldiers of this system will capture you with music, art, money, sexuality, movies, and many other worldly deceptions, and prevent you from walking that path. The cube in the United Nations building, the giant cubes in New York and in certain garden cities and art centers of the world, the cubes placed in their movies, the cubes placed at the heart of religions, all give us this message: we have taken every path. There is no escape from us. Harsh claims, aren't they? A cult in the shadows, being the soldiers of a false god, in a system that individualizes, corrupts, and ensures humanity never spiritually progresses. Some even say that Michael Jackson realized this, and just as he criticized the powers that govern the world in many of his songs, on the cover of his album Escape, he showed the cosmic reality and told us to escape from an outfit shaped like Saturn. Some even claim that they killed him for that reason. So, what are the truths behind these claims that sound interesting? Let's investigate them a little. The Saturn cult and the horrible rituals they performed, unfortunately, really appear as a dark page in the history of religions. That part is clear. But the problems start when things go underground after Christianity. This belief in the fake god demiurge, who deceives our souls and keeps us under control, is actually a philosophy based on Plato and is inherently a positive philosophical idea. According to Plato's dialogue, Timaeus, the demiurge is an intermediary that God used when creating the universe. It is the reflection of infinite and perfect ideas onto the universe. In other words, it is just a concept that the Greek friends used for brain gymnastics. Well, how did this beautiful idea transform into a god who traps the human soul in false realities? The answer, as always, is people, Christian Gnostics. I'm not talking about all of them. This is just one of their hundreds of subgroups. Based on old writings and the extreme rituals of the cults, they gradually began to draw such a mythology for themselves. And the first break happened like this. Then, hundreds of years pass, and in 1925, a secret organization called the Fraternitas Saturni, Brotherhood of Saturn, is founded in Berlin. They are influenced by these extreme Gnostic ideas and also by Aleister Crowley's Thelema approach, in which he flies and escapes with chemicals and then engages in ritual sex parties and exploits people. And an ancient extreme understanding is combined with a modern extreme and incorrect understanding. Then the Nazis hunt them down, of course. That's a different story. But once strange ideas spread, they don't stop. Years pass again, and these ideas combine with New Age movements, and the now muddled ideas begin to be brought up again. And this is what led me to make this video for you today. Because thanks to platforms like the internet, especially TikTok and Reels, which show people unsupported, sensationalist conspiracy videos in 1 minute, these individuals' cults have become popular again. Let's start by refuting a few claims. Because, the guy shows you Michael Jackson's album in a short video. Then he puts up 2 photos of the cult. Then he quickly shows the cubes in New York and Europe and zooms the camera onto his shocked face. Then he ends the session of mind clouding by putting up images of the Kaaba. So, if you'd like, let's proceed in a more logical way. Now, the main goal of these modern Gnostic Saturn worshippers is to ensure that the animalistic and individual nature of man is not transcended. Yes, the guys don't want you to progress spiritually or anything. On the contrary, they say, individualize, become corrupt, never go to heaven or the divine order, because you are not worthy of it. And for this, we are doing everything we can to corrupt religions. They say we have been changing the symbols with the symbols of the false god for thousands of years. Yes, the religious culture of the Middle East has paganism, idolatry, aberrant rituals, and the use of various cube-shaped Kaabas at its roots. Now, there are 2 perspectives on the Kaaba in Mecca. The first of these is the classical historical perspective. This approach says that the Kaaba in Mecca was a religious worship structure, like the other scattered Kaabas or cube structures in the geography from very old times. And while pagan rites were performed in the past, with the Prophet Muhammad, it became an important place where only one god was worshipped. There is also a more narrative-based approach, with little historical support but more cultural support, which says that the angels first built the Kaaba. Then it was destroyed due to floods and so on. The prophet Abraham and his son Ishmael rebuilt it. Then it became a place of pagan worship again for a while. But with the prophet Muhammad, it returned to its essence. Which one you believe is up to you. However, to say that all Kaabas or cube-shaped temples in the region are the Kaaba of those who worship Saturn is historically an incorrect approach, because this shape is generally a common pagan temple shape in that geography. Furthermore, to say that the modern Kaaba was deliberately made in a cube shape to reflect the cube of Saturn is also wrong, because the structure is said to have been rectangular in the past. Even beyond that, the custom of covering it with a black cloth actually started with the Abbasids in the 1200s. In the past, white was used more often, and as Islam spread and the number of pilgrims increased, the white cloth started getting constantly dirty. And for this reason, the black cloth was started to be used because it showed stains less, according to sources. So, to say that a very rich devotional structure, just because it has a black cloth on it, is this, and all Muslims are actually worshipping a fake god, is a flawed and very far-fetched claim. As for the upward-pointing crescent, it is a subject open to discussion even outside of this Saturn cult claim. Some call it the horn of Baal, some call it the crescent of the moon god, and some call it a geographical observation because the crescent is seen from below in Arabia, unlike in Turkey, where it's seen from the side. That is a completely different topic of discussion. But as I said, there is a cube in Mecca. King Solomon's holy room was cube-shaped. The Christian cross is actually an unfolded cube. There is a hexagon in the center of the Star of David. Therefore, all believers are worshiping a fake god. To say this was our plan is comical, and actually an approach based on manipulating and presenting subheadings, each of which would be a separate and very deep topic of discussion on its own, in a way that suits their interests. Let's continue and come to the shape found on top of Saturn, which, according to this belief, is a portal gate and is thought to be a passage between realities. Saturn is a gas giant and has atmospheric layers with different flow speeds. The shape you see over the poles is a natural storm formation caused by this difference in flow. Moreover, the black spot in the center is not a gate, but the eye of the storm. Experiments conducted at Oxford University have performed various simulations by rotating fluids of different densities under similar conditions in a cylindrical water tank. And geometric structures, including the hexagon and those with 3 to 8 sides, actually formed spontaneously as a result of this fluid dynamics experiment. In short, if you dive into Saturn because there's a portal, your problems will be quite bad. The answer to the question of why these structures exist in various parts of the world is that this is actually a genuine artistic movement. The cube is the purest form of minimalism, and artists like Donald Judd, Saul LeWitt, and Robert Morris use this structure sometimes for an industrial aesthetic, sometimes to reflect simplicity and pure form, and sometimes to bring modern architecture and art together. That is why they are usually found in front of museums and art centers. Not to occupy you with trivial matters, as the cult claims, art is never an inherently trivial concept. On the contrary, it is a concept that develops human creativity. As for the music and film part, the explanation there is actually much simpler: drawing attention. Not every visual used in the music and film industry has hidden agendas of secret powers ruling the world behind it. Often directors add such attention-grabbing elements to their productions from ancient myths, urban legends, and sometimes just because of their geometry. They add them so that people talk about those scenes, discuss them, develop different theories, and the video becomes popular. Most of the time, it's actually that simple. Not all of them, of course. In short, a ritual and belief that was genuinely aberrant and ignorant thousands of years ago has branched out over time as people changed, being adorned and combined with strange philosophies. On top of that, thanks to real stars on TikTok and similar types chasing popularity with short videos, it has resurfaced and become popular again. That's why, as I tell you in almost all my videos, always research and question what lies behind the subject. Thank you all for watching the video. If you want to accompany me on my journey, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the content if you enjoyed it, and leave a comment. See you in the next video. Take care of yourselves.